Starting another turn here in Seven Ages, and a couple of people, everybody picked their options already. Some of these choices were kind of tough. So for example, with the Swedes, I'm picking a destiny action. You might say, well, wait, is that the best you can do, is to do nothing with the Empire? Yeah, it's still there. It's still going to produce some victory points for me, at least one, maybe another one, because if I can make second place in Europe. But I can't really judge that it seems likely I'm going to be able to defeat someone, to expand in any valuable way. So given all that, well, how about, I'm low on cards. How about I use this as an opportunity to replenish my hand? And I'm still getting the advantage of having this empire in terms of it producing value. It's just, it's not something that I'm being particularly proactive about supporting. It's just sitting there. Maybe people will hit it, but right now it's just producing some points for me, which is, I'm in the lead, so I'm worried people will hit my things, though. So the first of these new empires is the Khmer, and they start off with a fairly high tech level, coming just behind, -2 to the lead, and they start off right here in Cambodia. Now they don't replace the units there, so I'm going to have to attack Cambodia. But this is a nice hit against the purple player, who's doing fairly well, to build up something right within them. So this starts off with an attack, and both sides will draw the cards and handle it just as a normal attack. Obviously, the Khmer have nowhere to retreat to, since this is the only space they're in. So it's conceivable they could just fail. Unlikely, though. They have a lot more troops. They had $15 to build up their army. One question to ask is, was it really that great an idea to discard the Mongols? They were producing 1 point per turn. That may be all the Khmer can do, unless I can get some artifacts or something on the board. They're just not in a position where they have, an opportunity to expand much. They're kind of jumping right into a crowded area that's at war. Point-wise, they get one for their home, one for being first in Southeast Asia, and then if they can get the artifacts up, more. But that's going to be tough. The orange-yellow player actually has a choice of empires to start. The Sudanese is one, which is going to start presumably in the Sudan here, right on top of an elephant. Now, I don't gain anything here, so I'd have to fight a double stack of Arabs. I'd be stuck between two of the Arab players' pieces. He's doing okay in victory points. Oh wait, no, that's me. He's a little behind mine, but that feels kind of iffy point-wise. Well, I'll get to keep my home, but other than that, everything's stuff I'd have to fight for pretty hard. The other ones are these Srivijayans and Javanese. Now, it's got an or, so I get to choose one of the two places, either here or here. And this is kind of an interesting thought as to where I want to put things. I'm assuming these are part of Southeast Asia, although other places specify what they are. This may just be so obvious because it's below the line of these. I don't know, it's close to Australasia, but whatever. The reason that's interesting is my victory points are, the first two places in Southeast Asia are worth 1, and then the home. So I see this as more likely to get me points. It also has some nice advantages. Now the Sudanese have an advantage. Their frontline infantry counts +1 on the first round of combat or something. It's kind of neat, and the ability to get elephants right away might be kind of neat. However, that would require a lot of maintenance, and I'm already involved in one war, so I may not be wanting to fight 2 wars at once. These guys, I can probably sail around and grab some island areas. to get the Southeast Asian expansion that other people are going to have trouble getting to. The big bonus here, trade is -1 normally, but it's +1 in age 3. Age 3 isn't going to last very long though, so I don't know, but the Sudanese trade is -1 no matter what, so I might get an advantage off that. But the big special here is that my ships are costing 4, and I can keep both cards whenever I lose a trade. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to start with them, and we'll set them up. The first of the production actions is by the Irish. Now, remember, I was going to get 4 points. I kind of cheated there. I shouldn't have that yet, because before I do that, I can perform my expansion of Christianity, and you'll see how powerful this is. I can move into an adjacent unit into an area, or I could cause a conflict somewhere. Now, given how the world is, I'll move to there. And that's going to increase my income to 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 -4, so I get $7 instead of the 4 that I would have gotten. And that puts me up to a 10, which is going to allow me to build some more units now with my production to expand where I am. Arabs do the next production, and the wealth of this Near Eastern area, combined with not being feudal or anything like that, has gotten them a humongous income. They actually netted $12, even including this fairly large army there. So now they're going to be able to build a lot of forces. They don't have any terrible interest in maintaining money, so they're just going to build lots and lots of forces. They would love to get the Islam card. They haven't been able to pick it up, and nobody started Islam. We got other production thickening this up so that's preparing for another attack against the Guptas, and, well, the Plains Americans just spreading out. Yeah, not spreading out, but producing more forces. Now, they've got kind of a problem, and I'm worried, of course, that I failed and forgot to advance everyone. Such is life. If that happened, if it did, we would have been in age 4 already. I don't think that's the case. I think I actually did progress them, but I'll never be able to remember little factors like that that can really affect this game. It's always very hard because I'm at the end of, what's the apparent sequence here, right? And then I'm like, go, glory! Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, this is, preparing for further expansion, further wealth. Once I get up to these better infantry, I'll be able to produce them. And right now, that's really my limitation, is sort of countermix more than anything else. I'm not allowed to build boats. I'm not allowed to build horses. Someday I got to trade with these damn Vikings. I thought about doing it this time, but I think for whatever reason I forgot to do it. And in a sense, I kind of need to build up the defenses because the Vikings could hit me. Maybe they'll trade with me. Trade operation, the Guptas had a hard time finding traders. They've got all kind of people near them they can trade with, but most of them are pretty good. The best choice for them, the worst trader, are these guys. So they went with them. Big cards were played on both sides, and it ended up as a tie, which means both people would gain nothing. So instead I played this joint venture that gives us both something instead. I really needed that because that pushes me into the 4th era, and I guess I have Renaissance now. I can't remember what the hell that does. That's really, again, the biggest problem I have with this. Trade is up by 1. Great. Who had it otherwise? Someone else has Renaissance. Shit. Over here. So they actually are even better. They're a +2 in trade. And in fact, they're going to be doing a trade operation right now. So they might be able to get an advantage. They can probably pick on one of these weaker guys. It's kind of neat to be the weaker guy because you might actually get something. Oh, these cards aren't discarded. They go into the player's hands. They just kind of swapped them. I forgot about them. Here is, I would love to go after the Guptas. But I know they have a 7 card in their hand. And now I don't have one. I've got +2, +1 for my nationality, and +1 for the Renaissance chit. But the Guptas also have Renaissance without a counter, and they have +1 for that. So I only have a net of +1. If I play my highest card and they play what I know they have, I'm going to break even against them. So then the question becomes, well, do I want to take a shot at that, get my 7-point card back? Or do I want, because this is a different empire, it's not the one that was traded with. If it had been the one that was traded with, that would have used up their trade in progress. So you can't have that kind of, you can't have the same empires trading with each other. And this would be fantastic because it's actually ahead of me. These others, well, at the very least I can reach someone. Where are those pale gray? They're there too. Yeah, so I could reach either of these and they're ahead. And maybe they have a lesser card. So I can go after them instead. Is the same opponent. He would end up beating me. I don't want to go for him. So the pale gray, the Chimeras, I can go for. And that's what I'm doing. Now for the Chimeras, it's an interesting question. They have a 7 card in their hand. They're pretty sure this guy's going to play a 6. They just saw the exchange of cards, or a 7. If he plays a 7, he has us beat, right? No. He only has +1 to his. Thought I had another. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I thought I had another plus there. So I can guarantee beating that 6. So I think I'm going to go for it because I'd like to get that advantage as well. He'll play the same Spaniards. He's got the modern Chinese, and that ends up exchanging their cards. And that means the Khmer get the advantages. Now they did not pick trade in progress, so all they get is 1 on the bonus table, and I have to hunt them down. That actually gets them out of a Dark Age. And the Vikings also do a trade in progress. They do it against the Saxons. Kind of was a question whether the Saxons wanted to even play a big card, because that's just going to put them into a Dark Age probably, well, guaranteed, and then they won't advance through it. But they played for it anyway, lost, and you got the Vikings moving up 3 whole spaces, getting themselves into Era 3 now. We're about to see the first withdrawal. The Goths came streaming in here, lost the first round of combat. That puts a disorder on these guys. They still have 8 strength points though. The best I can get is 2 against them with my frontline guy. 1 plus another 1 because of the disordered enemy. Even though I have some cards that might help me, I'm getting out of there. I'm going to fall back. Any bonus for the Saxons for winning a land combat? I don't think so. And the Saxons are now attacking on a broad front, trying to drive the Goths into basically submitting here. If I'm left with only 2 areas, that'll probably push them out. And then I'll have enough Saxon territory to presumably build up a bigger force and maybe eventually someday take Britain. I've got 2 victory points if I can be the top guy in Britain, but I can't get a foothold in Britain to launch these attacks, so it's just not been happening. What amounts to total success by the Saxons, that might actually give them the worldwide largest empire. I think it does. They don't really need that, they don't care about that, but it will reduce other people's glory, assuming nobody has any cards to tinker with glory has been done in the last couple of turns. That pushes us. I just did that one. That was the Saxons. I think I still may have maneuvers coming. And I did. We had the expansion of the Tangs. They destroyed some Korean territory troops. The Koreans have pulled back to their homeland to get more victory points, but they're basically looking at, geez, I'm not sure I want to keep that thing alive very much longer. Has the top in Northeast Asia, though. Homeland, that's 2. Money, I'm not going to be able to compete. You can see that just tons of money that some of these territories have. I forgot my starting money for these guys to get rid of it. So that's 16, 19, I think. I don't know. What is their ability? Ships are 4 each. 16, 17, 18. Yeah, that's all gone. I paid it and forgot to mark it. But yeah, you know, it's tough to compete on the money thing just because unless you do the production, get yourself boosted, and without a feudal society, production's not necessarily going to bring a lot of money here. 3, 4, 5 minus 3, I'm going to get $2. You know, I'm just not going to be able to crank my way into the top couple there. So I'm looking at 2 points per turn with the Koreans without much chance of expansion. Now 2 points per turn is pretty decent. If I kind of start using my Swedes instead, maybe we'll see the Koreans last there a little longer to try to generate points. But there is a danger that Tang are a real threat to them. They're going to be producing in and of themselves maybe not much more than the 2 points per turn. They got these 2. They might get the Asia one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas. 3, 4. Yeah, so I'm going to be top rank in Asia as well. So actually the Tang are going to be quite valuable at 4 victory points. You know, it doesn't take a lot of, it's not a lot of difference in the victory points that really gives you an edge. You can see they're not just cranking out here like mad. It's not like History of the World in that. It's each turn you kind of hope to get a few from each of your empires. Well, a couple is nice, one is kind of crappy. Destiny phase came around, a couple interesting things happened. For one thing, the Koreans, and I don't think, other than maybe a time when I cheated and did Destiny for them, I'm still not certain I did. I know I mentioned it, but I don't go back and look at my videos. They get a special bonus when Destiny is played, so they get a income from all of their cities only. In this case, it was just an extra $1, but somebody managed a big turnaround of money. Over here, the card I played was this gold mine. $15 gets it out of my hand. That's a nice card though, and it's worth $30, I guess, if I play it during a civilized action, like all the mines. When I drew a vizier, somewhere deeper in here, I just said, well, I want my gold mine back. Granted, there are things that can give glory, but in particular with this empire, it gets 2 glory for being top in income, and he's managed that. So, you know, I'm looking at that as a way to churn my income forward whenever I need it in a way that'll keep my glory going. At least that's how I'm looking at it. Maybe we'll see differently. There is a threat here where I'm still probably going to have to do a production, but then at the very least I can build one hell of an army with all that extra cash and, you know, still have the card for boosting my capital again. That pushes us down into the civilized action, and this is of course the most complicated in terms of play. Most of them have potential complexity in the sense that if you're not aware of everything, you'll miss things, like if you're not aware of every card that you hold, and during every other player's action and every rule in the rule book, you will end up screwing things up and missing actions, possible choices that you could have made. On the other hand, I should put these guys on top of the boats to cover them up, just so that other people don't know they're there. And I forget too. On the other hand, that kind of probably balances out, but there are also rules that you'll completely miss by not knowing this. So, you know, things like, I don't know, just there's a lot of little things that maybe won't affect you because you forgot about them. But Civilize just tends to be complex in and of itself. You've got to look through all your cards, decide, hey, can I play this for the event? Can I play it for the artifact? Or do I want to hold it for some other purpose? Every single one of your cards you have to judge. Now, you only have 6 probably, but it is still the hardest part of the game. Of those hardest parts, over here with Benin, I'm doing a Civilized. I was planning on playing the Great Library, but we're out of Zone 3 now, so unless I have something special, I can't do that. Of course, I got this assassination. We can see how that works. Speaking of this assassination, this pisses me off. There is actually a reference here, call into the rules. Take an assassination action. See rules. Of course, there's no numbering or anything, so there would be no way otherwise to reference into here. I can't for the life of me find any rule on it. I guess the only thing that I know of that I could find is there's got to be a card summary or something. No. See, the artifacts don't have it. I know I've read it. It's not in the player's guide that I've seen. Not in leader types. Then we hit artifacts. And we have nothing that goes into events specifically. So I got no idea where it is. It's buried in some action, probably Civilized. But, you know, as you get to know this, but you don't know where. Okay, wait, event cards and glory points, no. That at least mentions event cards. There aren't going to be, there's probably, I flipped through and there's no header for it. Oh, wait, assassination events, and that's under Civilized. Great. All right, so it does have its own specific place. This will allow me to attempt to assassinate another empire's leader. By the way, I have a card that I will never use. That I keep wanting to. This Overslept, you get to bone somebody else's action out of their hand. You know, like they flip something over and you can say, nah, you don't need a turn. Great card. It would be really fantastic in normal play. You could target the guy who's in the lead, right? Well, but the problem is I haven't internalized where that card is at any given time or that it's out or whatever. So it becomes very hard to remember. And with most actions that people take, it's not easy to just go back and reverse it as I've done with some. Okay, so the assassination. Draw a card from the deck. You can keep the card or discard it. Okay, it has to be in range. You can keep the card or discard it and continue drawing. If you've drawn as many cards as the event specifies, you have to keep it. The card will be hidden, and then the opponent is going to do the same. And whoever's got kind of the highest card wins the assassination attempt. What happens? A target leader is lost. So you can target a leader. So this is from Benin. You know, I don't think I really want to spend this card on this. It's not terribly useful, but the Papal States could be interesting. They actually have some advantages. I could hit my own. Otherwise, I'm only 2 distance away. So other than hitting my own Muslim, my own Arabs, that's not going to happen. But I've got some other I've got a lot of nasty cards to play on. Blue's been kind of running away from this, or with this, so decided to launch a couple of attacks on them. The first one was the Pestilence or whatever on the Swedes. We killed their city with it, and then failed here. Basically, you do a draw off. I don't know where it is. I don't know. These get buried under here because I'm drawing all kinds of cards. Anyway, you do a draw compared to the progression level of the Empire. The Swedes are only at 2. And you get the difference in damage points to allocate, and they can be hits on cities. The second one was, I don't remember, an Uprising or something like that over here, in which you draw 3 cards like the Assassination, or up to 3 cards, and the opponent gets to draw cards equal to the number of leaders that his empire can have. And if you get the higher value, you get an unrest marker on him, or maybe multiple unrest markers. I don't remember. And then my final one was a Revolution, which if you have an unrest marker in an empire, you can throw it, as an artifact on that empire. And that made but you got to be within range to throw artifacts. Crap. I may not be allowed to play that. I can't do that unless I'm in range. Unlike the other take that cards. So I think I gotta hold this and the revolution goes back. That would have cost a glory point, which is kind of a big deal actually. But I've got no one I can play that on because I'm playing Benin and they're just not close to him. And Benin was the only civilized action that I took. He ended up getting a builder for his leader, which allowed him to build more cities than he otherwise would be able to, putting him in a much better position. They're becoming a nice little civilization there, although a little on the backward side. Not too bad compared to, a lot of these others. Okay, this is the positioning after this glory round. Remember, everybody got to do glory. Now, this guy over here, who would have gotten 4 points who got 4 points with the Tang, he was playing this Truly Glorious, and everybody knows he has this. That would have doubled that. That was worth 8. Now, somebody had a card that could cancel it, and they chose not to, not thinking too hard. But someone else has the card that they could steal it. Now, had the first guy canceled this instead, then you couldn't steal it, but by stealing it, he made this over here give him 8. So now you actually see purple making a good run for the blue, and red isn't doing that badly either. So the plays that they've made, say, moving forward with the Tang, or kind of making this high money empire down here that gives it a lot of points for that. Those have been good plays overall. Now the one other person has something. Yellow-orange has this glorious pity, and I want to play this if it's useful. I add glory equal to half the difference between me and the next highest player. Well, half the difference doesn't give rounding. I've been rounding up on everything. That kind of makes sense. So we'll push them up there too. They're not in a terribly good position perhaps, but they have this expanding empire, so maybe it's not that bad. The Guptas aren't doing all that well though. But now we kind of see sort of a leading players and then people who are falling behind who, well, nobody's going to pick on them much for now. But you see there's a lot of opportunity to really blast people. Although everybody, some heavy guns were aimed at blue and it didn't bring them down too much. Example of the impossibility of remembering everything here. Hinduism during the glory phase. If you only make 1 point, you get a bonus. If you make more than 5, you get a penalty. Well, this guy would have only made 1. All he has is his home area. He doesn't get India. He doesn't get a vote on the world. So purple should actually be up 1 glory there. I may have been playing these artifacts wrong. They're played on the empire if it's in the ages stated on the card, as opposed to if the game is in the age on the card. Which means that I can still play things like the library for most people. I just can't play it for the people who've advanced beyond that. Not sure. I guess that makes some sense. It doesn't really make, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in some senses of the word. Like I can't think of, people, bush people or something in some terrible place building the Great Pyramids. But on the other hand, you have the equivalent with like Mayan and Aztec civilizations, which were completely separated from the technologies and the findings. So they were able to have those ancient types of civilizations. Now, do the Swedes have an ancient type of civilization right now? It's so hard to try to justify. Another thing is, I'm really, really having trouble with how ahistorical the game is kind of verging. In particular, Christianity. Well, if you followed the historical pattern, there would be something like Rome to spread Christianity. There isn't something like that if you start in Era 3. I don't know what starting in Era 3 means. That, there was no civilization before that, and now there's these more modern ones just cropping up out of nowhere? Or does it mean, as it seems to, that there is this prior past there, but we just don't know it? It very much disturbs me, and I don't think I could ever play it again solo using the base rules. I think I'd have to do the start in Era 1. There's some clever, cute stuff about that first turn action going on, but man, it just leaves me feeling like I'm not playing something that has any basis in the world. In fact, it makes me feel like I'm playing something more ahistorical and unreasonable than History of the World is. History of the World, at least, your Romans start here, and they're probably going to happen, and this, that, and the other. The game sort of follows this pattern. It's pre-scripted, etc. This one is not, and that may be part of why it's going off the rails. But if it had started in Era 1, it would have at least had a chance. But where it did start, all these new empires that come up, none of them have any religion, none of them have any government, none of that's been discovered, so nobody can grab it from anyone else, and it just really creates a feeling that, is just so discontiguous with my understanding of how things actually worked. Of course, begs the question, okay, let's say I'm looking at the Tang here. They have a trait of 0, +1 in age 3. Is it age 3 because I'm in age 3? Or is it because the world's at age 4 that I should no longer have this bonus? I think the latter. But God knows. And, it's not going to be explained under trade. That's clear. I think actually it's just not going to be explained. It's going to be assumed you can figure this out somehow. As to what date these things, whose date these things run by. And that's the problem. Once you start, once one thing starts working on a different calendar than another, then and that's called out specifically, without making it sound like it's some kind of exception, it makes you think that everything should either be called out specifically, or maybe everything should follow some general rule and that should be stated somewhere, or what. It's just not clear to me. Just now I realized I've never taken feudalism fully into account. I've just treated it kind of like a barbarian empire. The truth is, they also get reduced prices to infantry and cav. God damn it. It's just, there's too many damn little things, and they're too hard to access. And man, again, these damn cards are unreadable too. I mean, some of them, I'm trying to find the one, I had one goddamn card that I just can't read it. I mean, I have to stare at it under a bright light forever because of the color choices underneath it. I mean, this one's not too bad. Most of them are okay. But some of them, it's just like, I don't know where the hell the one is that I was looking at that I couldn't see. This one I can't read. The black text on that crap, the cave walls or whatever. You can't distinguish it. It's tiny black text mixed in on a background that's got like lots of black in it. So some of the letters are just completely covered or the same color as the background. This thing was just so badly developed. There's no question in that. But what they may have decided is they threw their hands up and said, there's just no fucking way, there's no way we can make it particularly suitable, so let's just release it as we have it, because it is a really cool idea. I'm realizing I fucked up enough and it's creating enough headaches for me that I'm actually going to call this one. I think I'm going to restart it in Arrow 1 all over again. The reason being, one thing is, I'm not getting any historical insight or interesting aspects to this. There's an interesting game here, but I'm realizing how badly flawed it is. So, for example, the Swedes. I started them out with a city because they started out in Era 3, but they weren't in Era 3. God, I don't even know now which way it should be. Yeah, fuck it. I got no fucking clue. No. The rules on the cities are worded as follows. Unless your empire has a no city symbol for this age, and likewise over here in capital. I think I did that right. I'll keep going with this crap. And I think that means the Plains Americans are no longer considered barbarians. So they're going to have the reduced payment if they want to build cities. So I'm probably going to have to do a civilization action on them. Unfortunately, they don't have the money to buy this off. They could get rid of it with a movement action. It's really complicated on this particular player, and that's why I'm really crapping out here, is I'm just worrying between, I don't get the fucking rules, and I'm not sure how to apply them because I can't get them. You know, if I really understood what these rules intended to mean, then I might have a chance, but this is a really, really difficult decision here where I have 3 empires, none of which produce very well, none of which are doing terribly well, but none of which are doing so poorly that I really want to discard them. Something I learned, which is not terribly intuitive when you cover up the terrain effects chart, is the value of sea areas. Their income is every bit as high as a fertile area, which in this production phase we've seen people are beginning to build more boats. They're going to pump their income up that way. You get, if you're a civilized, and yes, I have to keep covering the map because the whole thing's too big for my stupid table. You see that, and I didn't go with extensions. I had something to say. I don't remember what the hell it was. Yeah, that there's this sort of pattern with the kingdoms where, you know, you want to produce so that you can go out and expand, I guess. But with the, I know what it was. Just kind of whir the brain somewhere where it doesn't belong just for the hell of it. By the way, I built a fort as well. Lots of money for the Tang. Some of it was built up already. They had like $10 built up. But for the civilized nations, they're going to make $2 per boat that they send out to a sea area. So that becomes very valuable, and it also reduces the likelihood of a naval invasion if they can blockade the sea areas. But the money you make off most areas is really just 1, because most areas are 2-point areas. Now, a feudal nation would make only 1.5 off of that richer territory, seas and fertile regions. And of course, if you've got fertile regions with grain in them, you really don't want to be feudal. You want to make sure you have a good nation state. Trade in progress, the Koreans managed a big jump because of the Tang being near them. They outplayed them and managed to get quite a bit. You might ask, well, why are they really bothering? Well, they have to pick some kind of action. I guess there might be other things that work for them better. Maneuver, probably not. Civilize would definitely be an option. Production, well, they don't make a lot in production. 2, 3, 4, 5. -3, they get $2. It almost seems like, hey, I'll just sit here and do what I can, and maybe it'll be unpleasant enough to attack me if I can raise my level, which I did up to the same as the Tang. And that seemed pretty certain. If I got one, well, if I succeeded, if I get one space, I'd end up here after the advancement, the auto advance. So that would be kind of cool. Boy, the game's long enough as it is. The go slows would really slow this thing down even more. You know, unless you think an empire is going to last you for a long period, though, it's probably not terribly worth making the trade and progress maneuvers. On the other hand, the next guy, the Irish, I really did want to advance in particular, because Green thinks that they're the empire that they want, or they're an empire that they can make a lot of points off of. As long as nobody else becomes Christian, they're doing quite well with them. Well, they traded with the big old Saxon Empire. They have a bonus on that, but they lost, and the Saxons actually made their way out of their Dark Age. One of the big things about the trading is that it can get you out of a dark age, right? That's one of the big advantages of it. So if you want to keep progressing, sometimes you just have to play those or figure out some other way to get forward. All right, so now we're on to the maneuver, and this is, of course, where the conflicts take place, and they can take a good deal of time, too. It's not just the civilized, which is expensive in terms of... First couple maneuver actions, the Arabs crossed over into Thrace, destroying the Irish who were there. And they're also pushing forward, you know, in general. Remember, they want to be the biggest empire, and I think they're actually bigger than the Saxons now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The difference, of course, being I'm not sure whether or not water counts there. I think it does. So if you control more sea areas, that also adds into it. But the Saxons aren't going to be doing a maneuver this turn, so we should be okay and get the full points, whatever that is. It's 2 for the world. And then over here are what are these? The Khmer? Yeah. Marched into Siam, taking it, and that destroys this elephant. Puts it into their countermix, so they can build it, and they actually, I think, have an advantage with elephants. They get +1 to the elephant's support value. Now, generally, I don't know, elephants have a bigger regular attack value. This actually went like 3 rounds of combat, and Gray won all of them. They ended up disordered at the end and threw everything in it again against just one unit, just because they didn't know what was going to be happening. The Irish defenders had a card to their advantage that allowed them to see the attackers' cards during the conflict. Here's the problem, once again rising from the same kind of thing that we saw before. The Plains Indians and a lot of things have this no cities less than a certain era. If I can't have cities when it's me that's less than the era, which that kind of makes sense, but that's not how the wording in the rules is handled at all. The wording in the rules actually states it as what? Unless your empire has the no city symbol for this age, as if it's the overall age, right? What that means, then, is that these become not barbarians anymore, but someone who really wants to build a city to catch up. And the idea, most of these kind of end here in the Third Age. The idea is once you hit around 1300 or whatever, you're no longer going to have effective barbarians. Now, 1300 is about when the Mongols hit, historically. And... beyond that, you had, you know, long-ranging periods still where there were nomad forces that were of some value. How much do you want to call them? I don't know. Could they have ever been as big as the Mongols? I don't know. So you could kind of say, well, that is sort of the end of the Earth having these great powers. So now these guys really have to learn either build cities or don't. but if you don't, you're not going to be as good as you once were. You're going to be gathering half the money for not having a capital, but you're still going to have to pay maintenance on all your units because you're no longer barbarians. And that's kind of how I see it. Anyway, that's how I'm playing it, but I'm only, maybe 55% convinced that that's correct. Let's go to the maneuver. I'm at the maneuver for the Plains Indians, and they're going to be able to get rid of their disorder there, which is really why they took a maneuver. But let's look at the others. I don't know who the hell these guys are. Satavahana. These are my Hindi. They've really captured almost all of India. Took an elephant away. That's one that the Guptas never actually built. It was just sitting in their force pool. So now the other Indians can build it. And then the Vikings went. You can see they spread all over the place, basically setting themselves up for a good production turn. This isn't terribly good for Vikings, except if they spread out over enough areas, they've got a claim on, hey, whoever's the biggest in the world. And if they can manage that, they just need to get third place in that to get a point. If they can manage the full biggest, they get 3 points. So that's pretty damn impressive. Right now, they may be in the running for third place. It's hard to tell. We've got other things that still have to go. Anyway, on to my natives. With the Vikings beginning to spread, they're actually at a worry here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 to 7. I still have the advantage, but I've got definitely a threat on my hands with that. Note this. This counts. In fact, seas and oceans count for how much you have in an area. Anything that's adjacent to the area gives you that sea and ocean. So, for example, the Javanese here are interested in Southeast Asia. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've actually got the most of Southeast Asia now. It's kind of important to think about, remember in this game, is some cards like Oy, It's My Go, which could be very, very powerful, especially at the beginning of the game, but could be very, very powerful. They're attached to certain empires. If that empire is in play, same with some of the glory affecting ones, that card's never going to come out. So it's actually a way to kind of maybe prevent some chaos, to bring certain empires into play. Something that you might want to consider if you're in the lead, say, or otherwise, that you're taking away a tool that might help with catch-up, or might be more targeted to other players. You're certainly taking it out of your hand, but you're also taking it out of the deck for a long time. That one, we've gone through a couple of reshuffles since that came out as an empire. I think there are a couple of civilization actions out there, not many. Looks like that's probably one. This actually is one instead of a draw. Actually, that's an empire declining. But this one is. And we did the Guptas, and they played Confucianism. Now, they can't play it on themselves. It would have been great on themselves because it gives them a glory. Instead, they played it over here on the Javanese. Confucianism has some neat advantages which really would help them, which is it avoids disorders that would otherwise be placed. Great. If an empire takes control of a land area from it, it can convert to Confucianism immediately, but if it can't or doesn't do that, then it'll take a disorder in that area. It'll have trouble subduing the enemy. They picked up democracy from one of their neighbors over here, I guess. Democracy, we already know, that's good on defense. It reduces the cost of producing new units, etc. I'm probably going to go in decline, but I wanted to pick it up in case I choose not to. That's something I definitely want to have. The Confucianism would have also helped a little bit there. I wanted it for the glory no matter what. I don't really view that the Javanese are going to do that much in terms of trading. Although, well, see, I don't know what the hell. Which thing? Yeah, it's only the artifacts, I guess, that are keyed to the age of the empire that's producing them, which makes sense. You wouldn't want, like, you know, some aboriginals doing a moon landing just because it's era 7, right? But you could use their civilized action to play it on another on a country that does have the requirements. And we got ourselves a leader. This is a populist, help reduce unrest and maybe do some other things. You know, I mean, there's just too much to remember. There's no easy way to remember when your chits take effect. So populist as an example, okay, it has that reduction, but it also has an effect during production. I don't care what you use with these player aids. Basically what you have to do is know what the thing does to look it up to find out what it does, or know when it does something to find out exactly what it is. So if you don't remember what your pieces do, forget it. You know, you're not going to get to take advantage of them. All right. Anyway, we probably have more civilization here. The Swedes are trying to civilize. And you know what? I remember one thing, and I'm just tired of holding on to this damn card. But they're going to sleep. Now, of course, maybe they have a card which can prevent that. And I think that one's over there, but I'll check to make sure. Crap. I forgot about negative glory. I know this affected the Koreans at least once, so I could drop them a point. But you know what? You know, the Saxons don't care about holding their homeland, but some people do who aren't on here, and I don't think I can undo it. So the Vikings, for example, they've been losing a point every turn for Denmark, supposedly. Crap. The only reason I remembered it is somebody pulled out a negative, somebody looked at their card, or I looked at somebody's card, and it's got a negative glory remark in it. And oh yeah, those things produce negative. Nothing else does. But if you don't have your homeland territory, you get a penalty every turn. Crap. It looks like I flipped over their maneuver somehow, maybe by accident, and didn't play them out. Maybe because they look like they're... Oh no, I did play them out. I thought it was these guys. Okay, we're good. So I had already done the progress. This should be here. That empire declines. I had a phoenix, which allows me to start a new empire immediately as soon as I do that as well. So I started the Russians. I had a few choices here. I could have started the Ottomans, which would start here. That's right in the middle of Arab land. The Arabs aren't doing that well. Probably the best at hitting other people would have been if I started the Manchu, who would probably be able to wipe out this one blue, the Koreans, and then start fighting the Reds. Very appealing, but the victory point conditions for the Russians end up better, and they have cheaper units. On the other hand, the Manchus would have started off with 25 bucks, whereas the Russians start out with 5 times the age. The current age is 4, so they get 20 bucks. The Russians have some bonuses as well. In terms, they have their light horse only costs 3. Their initial infantry only cost 1 each, which was huge. And then +1 to the frontline value of any defending infantry. And they're probably going to be doing some attacks rather than defenses. But the fact that they have a 3-point investment in Asia, 2-point in Europe, and 1 point in India, that's not going to happen easily, means that I have good reason to believe that I could probably get second place. Except I bought the wrong fucking units. Second place over in Europe fairly easily. And first place in Asia should be pretty easy too. There's a lot of empty territory there. And that puts us to the end of the line for the turn. Here's where our point totals go. Blue is actually kind of losing some ground to purple at this point. And some other people have been jumping ahead. People like green with the Irish. Once the Russians start producing real points, they only made 1 this turn, they're going to be more impressive. There's too many things, too many empires that really need to be sunk. The Swedes, for example, they're worth 1 point. The Saxons, this huge empire, it's only worth 2 points. So that's kind of not a great thing to hold on to. If I'm expending effort on something when the best I can get is 4 points off of it, well, it's kind of a questionable thing to be leaving out there. So gray has this tremendous board presence that's kind of scary in Europe, but they're just not doing diddly with it in terms of points. And there's no real reason for them to keep maintaining it. They ought to sink the damn thing. Of course, their problem is well, this thing's actually kind of living nicely. It's the pinkish purple thing I'm worried about. And it's sitting on so much money that it becomes a really tasty little treat there. And it wants to sit on so much money because it gets 2 victory points a turn for that. It's pulling in 3 a turn with that little pinkish purple thing, which is more than these guys are. The Koreans are pulling in 2 a turn, the same as the Saxons are. So, this is not a game just about what territories you can hold, nor what are important on the board at any given era. This is a game where each empire has its own goals, and some empires aren't really terribly worth the points they're going to produce. All right, let's send this one.